Thank you very much. Now I'd like to welcome to the floor to continue the affirmative defence case, third speaker, Robin.
In a context where political development seems unlikely, where these regimes and the bureaucracy in countries like the Central African Republic, like Angola, is sclerotic and slow, where there is no hope of actual change in front of the horizon, where the land is fallow and foreign direct investment is minimal no matter how much the government does, under that context, do we go with their policy of waiting and hoping that political change will come, that somehow these governments will become smart and attract investment, or do we do what we do, which we admit can be kind of drastic, but at the very least, it's a solution to an urgent problem of now. That is the onus that they've never ever once dealt with. I'm going to look at two things today. Firstly, what exactly is the status quo, and what exactly will the effects of our policy be? And secondly, the less important concern, the long-term development of the state, because we must acknowledge that whether there is political development or not depends on factors outside of our policy, things like international efforts, like political developments, which they cannot guarantee as well. But before that, let's look at Paul's substantive here. I was warned that most of the good stuff will come in second, but I really, frankly, cannot see it. Firstly, they cannot identify with the fellow man because they identify with the corporation. I don't think an African farmer is going to say, I'm a citizen of Monsanto anyway. I mean, come on, man, look at Hong Kong. They were under the British for 99 years. Now they are Chinese again, only better in a sense. We don't think there will be much of a problem. Secondly, this idea of multilateralism between the developing world and the developed world. And they say this will undermine consensus for aid. On the first level, we think the consensus for aid is independent of this particular policy. When you elect crazy Republicans into office, they slash funds for USAID, regardless of your policy towards the developing world. The electorate usually doesn't place much store on elections in terms of foreign aid anyway, ladies and gentlemen. We think a more constant stream of election can come when there's actual entrepreneurs going there on a consistent basis. And as long as we can prove that our policy will attract more entrepreneurs, and we don't think this will undermine multilateralism at all. The people we're talking about here, the United States, even China right now, want to stay within multilateral framework. The analysis that Imran gave you that they never once dealt with, I'll elaborate on this later on. First, they show the status quo and what are the effects of our policy. So the first question in the status quo is, will the alternative of attracting capital investment and political development really work? And this is where the core of our analysis, coming from both my first speakers, have never been dealt by them. Because we're not talking about India or Vietnam, which already have a vast natural advantages in terms of people as well as resources, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about countries with political instability as well as no natural resources, whereby the land is fallow. And under these circumstances, foreign companies and entrepreneurs don't want to go there for fear of instability. Our policy gives them a guarantee of control, ladies and gentlemen, which is a comparative advantage that they did not have before. They need to show why people would not want to come. And more importantly, on the second level, they say Chinese companies will just come and exploit them now. We say for the people that actually come right now, that is exactly what's happening. Because the people who come are not your reputable MNCs, are not your government-linked Chinese companies, but people who have been squeezed out by the Chinese economy, who are willing to be more unscrupulous, ladies and gentlemen, who are willing to set up sweatshops right now. They say they either pay too low or too high. If it's too high, it's bad because you need to lower labor standards. That's what happens right now, ladies and gentlemen. That is precisely the problem. In the absence of control, only some people are willing to come, and those are the people who will create the very race to the bottom that they are talking about. So, what exactly will be the implications of our policy? Will there be exploitation or economic development? We agree there will be exploitation insofar as the people will pay lower wages than someone in Ohio, for instance. But the exploitation will happen either way. We say on the first level, the incentive for these people to actually abuse their workers is minimal because people like China want to stay within multilateral frameworks. They were desperate to go into the WTO because the benefits to their economy is immense, ladies and gentlemen. So we highly doubt they will send in the People's Liberation Army in the event that they're not happy with the government of Angola, for instance. Secondly, we think there will be economic benefits. They say they will destroy the land. We don't think building piping is necessarily destroying the land. We think when the land was previously destroyed and fallow in the first place, having a factory there is probably a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. They say creating drains is the best. They say creating drain pipes is usually stealing water. As a country, coming from a country that over 40 years has come from no drain pipes to drain pipes, we think drain pipes are a very good thing. Don't get that. Lastly, we don't think these people will be like the East India Company from the British, for instance. We don't think they have an incentive to politically influence this particular government, because the currency of international power, regardless of China or the United States, is fundamentally economic. So they want to develop these regions. They want to create consumers, and they want these regions to grow precisely because it benefits them. The last thing is the competition that they will create. They claim will create a race to the bottom. On the contrary, the race to the bottom already happens now, as we have already said. We think we'll create the race to the top, because we attract MNCs and government-linked Chinese firms who previously did not come in before. People like government-linked Chinese companies, like even the United Food Company. Under these circumstances, there is more competition, and competition may in fact be beneficial because it attracts better MNCs than before. So we think in the short run, considering that there are millions of unemployed in this particular country, this will be beneficial, and the most urgent need right now will in fact be rectified, if not perfected. That is why the status quo, that's why they cannot defend the status quo. Let's then move on to the second issue, the effects on the state, ladies and gentlemen. They claim that this policy will make the state seem powerless. On the first level, once again, they've ignored the status quo, because the state seems powerless now. When you cannot provide governmental services, when you cannot provide jobs for people, when there are millions of unemployed youths on that particular state, that is when the state is undermined, ladies and gentlemen. And unless they can show that there's such a great international effort, they can push these people towards political development in such a short time to strengthen the state, and their deliberate steps towards doing this, we think our policy still stands. And especially since there's an international trend of greater isolationism from countries like the United States to focus on their own constituencies as opposed to developing Africa, we don't think that will happen. Secondly, we don't think the people will be that pissed off, because like Imran has already said, these people primarily identify their communities and the well-being of their communities first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen. That is why if there are economic development, we think people will be largely accepting. So the most important thing, and they put a lot of store on this, that this will not help the rest of the country. On the first level, we think helping some who are unemployed is better than leaving everyone else unemployed, ladies and gentlemen. But let's play ball here and talk about the rest of the country, even though that is not the main focus. On the first level, Imran has already said there is an opt-in system where people from the rest of the country can still choose to go in as day laborers, like the arrangement between Lesotho and South Africa, for instance. So they will still get jobs throughout the rest of the country. Secondly, there will still be trade. In Imran's policy as well, they never once dealt with that. These companies, because of low transportation costs, have an inherent incentive to sell to the nascent middle class within Angola anyway. This will be cheaper goods from the United States because of the lack of tariffs. We think that is good insofar as lowering the cost of living in this particular country. And thirdly, Imran has also said this: if this particular little sovereign stateless can become little Hong Kong, ladies and gentlemen, which are economically prosperous compared to the rest of the country, we think that is actually good, because we think this will incentivize the people to pressure their government to be more like them, to actually implement economic changes like destroy state monopolies and things like that, and for instance, settling its tax laws and things, and we think that is actually good. We're not saying this will definitely happen, or we say there's a chance of this thing happening. We think the development is always the first step. They say there must be political development instead. As a Chinese person, I mean a radical proposition that under the majority of circumstances, it is economic development that comes first, and development must always start somewhere. Even if it starts disproportionately in one particular area, that is always how you start, and we think that is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, we must understand the context here. We're talking about countries that currently do not have hope. They're facing massive unemployment and no political development. Under that circumstances, our policy provides jobs and economic development now at the expense of a sovereignty that is not precious anyway. They want to rely on the long term, and that is why we are proud to propose.